is no agenda here for the good guys, not yet. It's coming, though, and I'll tell you when it's coming. It's coming the moment that Washington and the powers that be unleash our own Department of Homeland Security and the military against its people.
But, okay, according to my source, Greg and Steve, I mean, look, and Steve, you pointed this out, they're laughing, DHS, the brass, they're laughing at the fact that these grope-a-dopes allow their families, their wives, their children, their grandparents to be touched, sexually molested, if you will, at the airports. And I'm sure as a commissioned law enforcement officer, sir, you'd never touch people in a way that they're being touched, unless, of course, they were under arrest. You know, you certainly not or under suspicion.
Well, that was an entirely different scenario, and I agree with you. You see, we've been conditioned, one more time. This is a matter of conditioning. It has nothing to do with security. This is to make people compliant and complacent about what they do and what they're told to do, so they just simply get in line and go where they're told. That's the only purpose we have here. There are other systems that would do much better, especially in TSA, and of course as TSA now is expanding across the country and is going to be seen on the highways and the train stations and the bus depots, and the TSA will be the equivalent of the Gestapo or the SS in its scope and the reach of this, so that what we are now tolerating, is that what we say as Americans? We tolerate what TSA does? That means we've acquiesced to it. We have surrendered to it. That's why we can't get anything straight anymore, Doug and Steve. It's because we don't know anymore right and wrong. We don't know anymore moral and immoral. We just forge ahead doing whatever we're told. That's why we are where we are at this moment in history in this year 2012.
Wow. Steve.
And Doug, I want to share something with you. I maintain that when the pulpits turned into, how do I say this candidly and not offendedly, but let me just say this. When Jesus said that we're the light of the world, and when he said that we're to let our light shine, he's talking about those who call upon his name and follow him. But when the church started embracing the social gospel at the expense of the supernatural redemption that the living God offered, we put up, as the church members, we put up with the mockery of Jesus. We put up with the defamation of living God. How dare the ACLU say they think that 4 of the 10 commandments need to be replaced? In the name of Jesus, I have prayed that the Lord will literally rain fire down. Somebody says, you're an angry man. You bet I'm angry, because the Bible says that God is angry with sin every minute. And you know, you guys, the bestiality. Greg, you remember when Senate Bill 1847 was repealed? In other words, you know, your best friend, or forgive me, your 4-footed friend can now become your lover. I mean, you know, we're talking about sick stuff, you guys. But the basic thing is that America has spiritually destroyed itself. It has come to this. This society has destroyed itself. And on my website, I want everybody to go and read the vision from Julia, or the dream from Julia, the very bottom of it, because there's certain words there that can be translated Hamas. When you put a C in front of it, it changes the meaning, but basically it means it's a crime committed through cunning or malice. C-U-N-N-I-N-G or malice, and it means that human justice doesn't have the means to pursue a crime that only the voice of conscience could prevent. Our consciences are seared. We didn't stand up for 70 million little wonderful created human beings who could have been the geniuses, the answers to our problems. They were snuffed out, and it was a blood sacrifice to Lucifer. And the dumbass churches, and I'm fired up. The dumbass churches wouldn't even stand up for the innocent. You know what's godliness in God's eyes? He said, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When you did it under the least one of these, then we put up with bestiality, okay? And then we put up with the trans species genetic manipulation, where every barrier and boundary that the living God had set in place for our safety, everything that God has created was wonderful and good. Now, these people in Congress, by the way, Greg, you know this, are all sexually compromised, all of them.
Yes.
They're all compromised. I sat down with the former head of KGB for Eastern Europe almost 15 years ago, you guys, and my critics can just go hang themselves and do everyone a favor. I'm serious about this. We're talking about. Listen, we are talking about the murder of 30 to 50 million people, and they want it done in under 30 days. We are talking about never in the history of the United States government have Russian Spetsnaz troops. And by the way, you guys know, I was told that they all speak perfect English because they've been trained for this point. If they've been trained for this point, then go back 30 years, watch what happened. Obviously, when the Berlin Wall and came down, I remember my statement at the time. I said simply this. Now, every spy that had to figure out how to make his way into the West was granted free access. So, when everybody was clapping, I was crying. When everybody was saluting the end of communism, I said they just transferred it from their shores to our shores. But this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a generation of so steeped in sin. Now, look, I'm a sinner. I have been. I sin still. I'll have to repent after this show, I guarantee it. But I'm pleading with God. I don't know if you guys are doing this, but like Greg, you find yourself weeping for the nation. I've walked on the beaches in Europe where the Normandy invasion was, and been to the great battlefield cemeteries, and I've seen history. I have never been in the military. I can't even fathom what you guys see and have had to deal with. But I can tell you this, that Jesus is still the same answer. And when Dmitri Duduman was given the vision of America being attacked, it was predicated upon this time, where if you go to the Drudge headlines tonight, basically you got Al Sharpton and you got other people saying, let's go for it. It's time to have civil war. Look, if you and I said that, we'd be accused of terrorism. So the race card is being played. And here's what I want to say. I want to say to every black Christian out there, every Latino Christian out there, every American, every single American that doesn't put a modifier in front of it, who truly believes in the living God, that Jesus is the Son, don't follow the bait. Don't swallow the bait. Pray that God will deliver you, because the thing is that ethnos is rising against ethnos. That's what Jesus said, nation shall rise against nation. So the thing is, look, what do we stand for? Absolutely debauchery, depravity, and the total pollution of the world. Whether we're Mystery Babylon, which I believe we are, or the daughter of Babylon, which John Price writes about, the bottom line is the same judgment will befall both of them. And this is where the people don't understand. See, Doug, even when you and I first started doing the HQ Intelligence newsletter, and Greg, I don't want to take away from your time, but there was a lot of this stuff that in those days patriotism was rising after 9/11. And I said that's why people won't listen to me when I say God shared with me, and I'm on record. So, let's see what my critics are on record. Most of them are too cowardly to even use their real identities or their Northcom, computer-generated identity. The bottom line is that America is going to be judged. And before America is destroyed, you guys, 15 years ago, those of you who've listened to me that long, God will reveal the sins of its leaders to the people, and the people's sins before their God. Is that happening, you guys? The more corrupt, the more inane, the more, Joe, you asked a question about the Attorney General, lying, all the manipulation, fast and furious, in which U.S. federal agents, and I want to speak to the federal agents right now. You guys, you don't understand that they'll use you, and when they're done with you, they're going to throw you away. Some of you are in police forces or in the highway patrol. If you're told that you've got to take a foreign guy in your back seat or someone who's going to be an observer, you better be very careful, because guess what? They already have your entire dossier. They know who your family is, and they're ready to whack you when you don't toe the line or when they're done with you. Greg, you know that to be true.
That is correct, Steve. In fact, I've had a few men mention that to me. They said, well, when are we going to be on the firing line? And I said, well, if it doesn't come from within, because once you have stepped out and done some things that clearly are not in the police handbook, then you're going to be the next to be lined up and taken out, taken away? Certainly so. Will that happen in the military? I absolutely believe it will. Steve, we're not talking about 30 or 40,000 Spetsnaz. What I was told was 150,000 Spetsnaz in this country.
150,000.
That's real.
Now,
that's
okay.
real.
But people will say, Greg, people will say, well, what can 150,000 Spetsnaz do? I mean, versus 311 million people.
Well, 300 million, Doug, there's not, I mean, you're counting men, women, and children, and the Bible even rebukes this time period, saying all the men in the midst of thee are women. I mean, no offense, when you got metrosexuals and they don't know if they're either gay or straight, you got a problem, okay?
I mean, you have a president of the United States that came out today in favor of same-sex marriage and so forth. Look, I'm not going to get off into that trap, but I will say this. What can we expect of leadership what can we expect as a result of leadership like this on this issue or any other that is subversive to freedom, that is subversive to the Christian way of life, that is subversive to the history of this nation? My family goes back to the Revolution, and they fought all the way through. My father flew a B-24 during the war. I have been raised in a culture of fighting for freedom, but we began to look less at fighting for freedom and more for fighting for those who would destroy freedom than we did in previous generations. Therefore, we have raised the last two generations of this nation, with the exception of those men and women who have been called away to actually fight, but for what cause? You see, we have an impotent, we have a sterile generation of people in this country that do not know the meaning of sacrifice. They do not understand what it means to stand and be shot at, and to realize that your life can be measured in seconds by the 1 square meter, veterans. You know what I'm talking about here. 1 square foot or yard of ground that's yours, and that may be the ground that you die upon. When you have invested your life, your mind, your spirit, your body, your emotions in that kind of a life for months at a time, when you come out, you've got a pretty doggone good idea what it means to fight for freedom, even if it's not your own or your nation's at that moment. But we don't have any more, fellas. We don't have people like that understand that what we're talking about here is the heart and soul of what America was. You see, the reason we have no chance, Steve, and you've been so clear about this, and I agree with you, that we have no chance of reestablishing the republic as it is or as it was. In fact, I'm not sure we want to do that. But the chance is gone is because that people do not understand what it takes to have a free republic. It takes a relationship with the Creator, God, His Son Jesus. It takes a relationship with the powers that allowed this country to be founded and fought for and to expand. And when we decided we wanted more corruption and more evil and more self-satisfaction through whatever it was we sought, that it was then that we lost this nation. It wasn't just Barack Obama, although he's been terrifically involved. It wasn't just John Boehner and his Rhino Republicans and all the rest of them. It has been the American people. When I get up in the morning and shave, guys, I'm looking at the guy that's responsible. Ultimately, I'm responsible. I've tried to do my very best, and I'm like Steve. I'm a sinner. I'm saved by grace, but I'll tell you this. I make plenty of mistakes, but I've made my one promise, and I'm going to keep that for my children and my grandchildren and my good friends and neighbors, and that is that I will not stop until I'm gone from this world in going for that which is correct, right, honest, above board, and that which we all should be fighting for, because if we don't, then there's no point in going out the front door tomorrow morning. I pray that everybody listening to us right now will get that message, get on their knees, find the Lord of their salvation, and get up off their knees with a purpose that they will begin to do what they should have done a long time ago and get this country back on its feet.
Wow.
Well, hey, I want to share something with you guys. Now, Greg, you've been in the military, so the Joint Chiefs of Staff is a pretty important position, correct?
Yes.
Now, well, Admiral Thomas Moore was a fan of mine because, and I want you guys to know this. So, for someone who's accused of being full of, S all the time by these shills on the boards, and by the way, I got to share this with you. Admiral Moore told Sue Bradley, who was one of his, lead researchers, he said in those days, this is 11 years ago, actually probably closer to 15 years ago, that I was the only guy telling it like it really was. Now, when he wrote Unrestricted Warfare in 1999, I'm talking about the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So all you little piss ants, to quote Gene Scott, back off. He said financial warfare. He said psychological warfare, media warfare, resource warfare, drug warfare, smuggling warfare, and cultural warfare not only would be integrated, but international law warfare and ecological warfare. Now, this is a guy that was the head of the entire military, and the thing is he said, look, he told Sue, he said, Sue, there are a lot of people telling it out there, and people now who are on big names on talk radio who wouldn't let me go on their show years ago and talk about this stuff are now talking about it, but they forget that they put the kibosh on me to talk about it. That's why I don't do guesting on very few shows, you guys. And I want to thank you, Joe, and you, Doug, and especially Greg. Listen, I know Greg. We've sat, we've broke bread, we've seen eyeball to eyeball, okay? And I can tell you this, that, and Greg, I say this not as flattery, but I am so glad you are one of the only people in the years I've been on talk radio to ever stand up with me and for me. Now, why is that important? I'll tell you why. Because, look, all you people that sit in the chat rooms, whether you're on Omega Man or this one or whatever that are out there, you've got to ask yourself, if people are pleading and putting their lives in danger and putting their entire essence on the line, then what do these devils that have a microphone do in the chat rooms? You've got to ask them that. But if you can't stand up, here's what I want to say, Greg. Maybe you have an answer for me. Maybe you do, Doug or Joe. Throw it out there. If people won't stand up for people who are standing up for Jesus, what makes the Christians think they go into the camp and be these wonderful witnesses? They're not going to get a chance. I mean, some of the, I will not post some of the prophecies that Brother Bob and others have had. Even Julia's was horrific on my front website, and people say this is all just nonsense, that we're trying to sell fear, to sell food. Listen, the food situation's so dire. I am intimately connected with the food business. I know what's available on a world market on a given day, and it's so shallow, you guys. So when I tell people, get your food, this is the last chance you're going to have, people say, oh, you're just selling fear to sell your food. I'm saying get it wherever you can get it. But know this, if you go to Walmart, you're being filmed, and you're being, every purchase you make is tracked. If you go to Costco, the same thing. The thing I'm telling everybody is, look, Doug Hagmann talked to a DHS guy. He said they're going to starve you into submission. How dumb unto death can you get to resist that? It's insanity, Greg. It's insanity.
Steve, I couldn't agree more, and thank you because of your continue. You see, Steve Quayle is the kind of guy that will not faint. He will just won't quit. And I admire people like that. So that's why he and I are such close friends. But beyond that, Steve and Doug and Joe, I'm going to tell you, I have talked to the people at the co-ops in the Midwest states. The foreigners have been in trying to buy up crops in advance. They've been doing it for the last 2 or 3 years. They come in with checks in hand to buy the entire crop, co-op or that grain elevator. And why? Because they know what we're right at the very front door of, and that is not being able to feed our own people. Now, even beyond, Steve, and you're absolutely correct about getting the food, and do it, folks. Don't just say you're going to do it. Do it, and take whatever means you must. If you've got to put it on a credit card, do it. If you've got to eliminate a 401, do it. But if you don't do it, what are you going to do when it comes time to feed your family and you don't have it? They keep saying that other than food, if you have non-hybrid seeds that you can replenish and you can grow your own thing, then you better get back into the old way of doing it, because that may be the only way you feed your family. Fellas, we're at the cusp of it. We're at the front door.
And Doug, I just want to share something. You know, the thing is that I have been pretty much out of the food business for 10 years. I felt the Lord said, go back to your original calling and warn my people. When I saw Jesus face to face, I didn't know anything about Joseph, but he told me I'd have a Joseph's ministry. That was 40 years ago, and that I would be responsible for feeding the people. Little did I know, the more you try and help them, the more they're going to bite the hand that feeds them. Not everyone, but a lot of them. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you point blank, blank that it's a do or die situation. Just like I met a guy, a very good friend of mine, Greg, kind of a similar background to you, and the situation is that he's one of the largest buffalo raisers in the country, and bison is better than beef, less hormones, more nutrients and stuff. And so the thing is that you can go out and buy a meal for $6 that's maybe freeze-dried, but it may have an ounce of meat, or you can buy a bison chili with 500-600 calories and 4 ounces of meat. This is the stuff I'm trying to get into the hands of people immediately. My own time frame, you guys, and people are emailing me now. What's your time frame, Steve? My time frame is we are up against the wall now, and what you can do. I had a lady today call me, you guys, and she said, will you take an 18-karat bracelet in trade gold? I said, yeah. If you want to sell it, yeah, I'll buy it from you, and I'll pay the money to Dry Harvest, and they'll ship you the food. What I'm telling people is we've all got too much junk. But when Doug, you don't know how important your article was. That article, in my opinion, set the stage for the entire future of this nation. I believe that, and I'm not kissing anybody's butt, okay? I believe that was the most seminal, the most telling and compelling. And I don't know your sources, but if he's listening, God bless you, my friend. Because, again, I want him to know, thank you. I personally, if I could thank you, I would thank you with tears in my eyes and say thank you so much. But how, Greg, do we get it across? And I prayed tonight, and I'm sure you did too. Well, we know we did. We're all praying. I mean, the intercessors are all praying for this show tonight, that, God, if you've ever granted the scales to come off people's eyes and hearts, Lord, take them off tonight, because I don't know that this isn't my last show. If I have, if a lot of the shills on your board or your blog talk and stuff wanted their way. And by the way, I'm being told right now, Doug, that we're being censored on Google Chrome, and we're also being censored on Internet Explorer. When people are getting kicked off, it says that no connection. So this is what was indicated to me in the from the backside, Greg, from our friends, that we would be taken down. So. Correct. I'm just telling you this, that I don't know where we're up, where we're not up, but by the grace of God, please, ladies and gentlemen, understand, you will sell your birthright for food. A dad who looks into his starving children, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'll tell you point blank, when Doug Hagmann put that story out, my heart broke. It broke in two. I knew that was coming, but for your friend, and God bless him again, Doug, to come forth with that from the level he's at, I mean, hey, Greg, this isn't Greg and Steve and Doug, or Joe, Bad Time News Hour. This is coming from the horse's mouth, and you know what? These guys laugh, Doug. You know this. I have been told by amazing, powerful people, Steve, you're wasting your time. And they call even my critics dumb you-know-whats. And they say, because you're trying to save people who won't even take the first step to save themselves. Come over to our side. We at least take care of our own. And my answer to that is, you guys, is I'm on Jesus' side. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's
Steve.
right.
What you were talking about earlier about Christians who are not active, and I wanted to add to this because this is something we talk about often. The way that the church has been neutered, the way that the pastors do not preach about the times that we are living in. They do not preach or teach their congregation about how the government is manipulating society. And I think that is a huge problem, and they won't do that. They won't teach that stuff. Because, a lot of them have been approached by the Department of Homeland Security as part of the clergy response teams. And that tax status does get held over their head, and a lot of preachers get scared by that, just like a lot of normal people would. But this is not the time to be scared and any fear that these preachers or leaders of any kind of group or audience, it's not the time to have fear. There's no time left for that. And it's sad to see it happen. I see it at my own church, but we need to get the churches to get a voice and to stand strong. And if that does not happen,
it won't. And I got to tell you, Joe, it won't happen. Okay. What will happen is men and women of God, and I mean some of my most powerful intercessor friends are the ones that are close to me, and I'm telling you this, and Greg, you're blessed with an amazing prayer warrior wife, but I'll tell you what, you'd rather have Liz on your side and praying because she knows how to get to heaven on your behalf than some of these limp-wristed limp-wristed pastors. Look, I used to go to a limp-wristed pastor, Joe, I don't know if you know the story, real quick. I gave a guy $1 million building years and years ago, and he turned out to be just one of the biggest cowards I've ever seen. So you can't, and I'm going to use a word here, but if you think about what it really means, you can't expect poultry droppings to stand up and be men, okay? If they shake hands like a wet tuna and they're more concerned with their retirement. Now, I've met a new incredible pastor. I put up his video on my website, Leo Stratham, and I mean, this guy knows how to preach the Word of God. He's a prophet. But see, there's so few of these guys out there. There's so few, and any man of God who will stand up. I have men of God who won't even stand up and bring an errant brother to task when he goes out and slams a bunch of people, and just say, look, you've got to go to your brother if you've got aught. And you can't say you forgive him if you're pissed off at him and you haven't asked him to forgive you, because you basically have called into credibility and question. See, we eat our own, you guys. I'm concerned about the cannibalism that's going on in the genetically modified food, changing our DNA, turning us into a bunch of Morlocks out of the Time Machine novel. And the point is that people can't even stop eating their brethren. I got news for you. You go on a talk radio and try and lift up Jesus, you got great white sharks and hammerheads that claim that flint sharpens split. That's a misappropriation of the Scripture. You're a hypocritical, lying son of Belial if you think that. Flint sharpening flint means you are using both pressures to bring to a spear point that which is going to be used against the enemy of the Lord. It doesn't mean that you're to take your axe against each other's neck. Greg, I got to tell you something. I know that we're going to fight everything and anything, both seen and unseen, both on the earth, coming upon the earth, and under the earth, but it's so bloody discouraging when we've got to fight the brethren. And so when people quote, oh, Jesus said, blessed are you when all men speak evil of you. Jesus did say that. He also said, they hated me without a cause, they'll hate you without a cause. But that doesn't give Christians a license to devour one another. And that's what really, I got to tell you guys this, it's something that I still deal with God on that whole issue daily.
Wow. Steve, I want to just switch topics here. I received a message, an email message, and somebody wanted me to relay this to you, to just tell you thank you so much for your support. It is a person who you helped out, who was in a time of need, could not get his rent and could not get food, and he just wanted to say that you are a true man of God and you are a blessing, and he thanks you very much. And this is what we need to be doing.
And people have to understand, and let me interject this here. People have to understand, Steve is, and I've known Steve for the better part of a decade, almost a decade now, and I got to tell you, he would give the shirt off his back, and I'm sure he has, and he's helped me out many times. He's been a brother to me, but he walks the walk. He just doesn't talk the talk. He walks the walk. I've heard from people who have, and Steve, again, I'm not blowing smoke just to do it, but folks, just to tell you what kind of guy Steve Quayle is. I've heard from people who said, "Look, I've been in a jam. Steve has helped me." He said, "Don't worry about paying me back. Don't worry about anything, don't say anything." And Steve said, "Don't say anything. Don't tell anybody. I did this. Just keep it among ourselves here. Just catch me whenever." That's the kind of guy that we're talking about. And I'm going to tell you, I know by reputation. Greg as well, and I got to tell you, I'm sure he's the same kind of man. And look, they walk the walk; they just don't talk the talk. So, and we are so, Joe and I are so humbled to have both of you on this program. We know our time is short. We know that there may not be another chance to have either one of you or you together on this program.